Charter Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here in the San Gabriel Valley. Glad to have him back. He is Char Miller. He is a professor at Pomona College, and he is the author of this book, America's Great National Forests, Wildernesses and Grasslands. I must tell you, the imagery in this book is absolutely captivating. It is breathtaking.
Yes.
And I'm so glad so much of the book is dedicated to California.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I'm here,
Exactly.
so it was going to be that way.
Talk to us about the journey in writing this book.
Well, it's been a fascinating journey. It's a collaboration with a photographer by the name of Tim Palmer, and he had much the better job because he got to travel all over the country, and then would send me photographs and go, guess where I am?
Exactly.
And somehow he managed to get to El Yunque National Forest in Puerto Rico in the winter.
Nice.
Yeah, which is lovely.
Nice.
But you know, because of where I live and in Claremont, I get to look at the Angeles National Forest, so that was going to be in here, and a bunch of other national forests from California.
So what are some of your favorites?
Well, clearly the Angeles, because I see it every day. I love the ones that run up the Sierra, so the Sierra, the Sequoia, the Tahoe, but also it was driven by sort of stories. And so the one in the Klamath in Northern California is the first place where a woman was hired to be a lookout. And I went, oh,
yeah,
got to tell that story,
right?
This is 1905 or something.
Right.
And the joke was in the day, and it wasn't much of a joke, she had an interview and the boss said, well, how did the interview go? And the guy goes, well, there's a couple of guys, and then the other one's there's no gentleman. But I want to hire her because she knows what she's doing. And I went, okay, I have to tell these stories.
More.
Yeah. So
there's more stories.
There's wonderful stories about the Los Padres, right outside of Santa Barbara, in which it's a lot of livestock, and I found a memoir of a guy who was one of the early rangers up there. And he came from New York City, had never seen anything, let alone, you know, the Santa Barbara region, and fell in love with the place. Okay. So there's those kinds of things that really strike me. And the one about the Angeles, which cracked me up, was a comedic writer in the early 20th century wrote about taking a mule up to one of the highest spots in the San Gabriels, and it terrified her. Totally terrified her. And she said, and then I got on it and went downhill. And it said, usually it took 3 to 4 hours. My mule got me down in 40 minutes. And she said, I didn't think I was going to survive, but she wrote about it in a way that was really funny, made total fun of herself.
Let's talk about the San Gabriels, because as you know, they've been made a national monument.
Yes.
And so what does that do for that region, especially given that you've just recently written this book?
Right, and I managed to slip that in the text. What the National Monument does is to give greater protection to parts of the Angeles National Forest. So, for example, there's a lot of Native American artifacts and sacred sites up there, and under the terms of the agreement, there's going to be more protection for those ritual and sacred ceremonial sites, which is fantastic. It gives a bit more protection for wilderness, for example, and so not that there was ever logging in this forest.
But what there was a disregard, it seemed, for the beauty. I mean, I have seen imagery of just filth in
it's
the area.
tough place to manage.
And as a result of the designation, I understand there's now funding to clean up that
filth.
filth.
That's right.
Which is great news.
Right. They've got about $3 million extra over on top of their normal budget to sort of help them manage, for example, the San Gabriel River, Topanga, Big Tahunga Canyon, Mount Baldy area are probably 3 of the most heavily used places. 4 million people go up there every year.
Right.
I mean, they pound it.
I want to speak about our forests, our wildernesses, and our grasslands in the context of what we are experiencing right now.
Yes.
Which is, I guess you could say, a series of large, aggressive wildfires.
Yes.
I know that you have a very special view about wildfires. One, I think it's important that our viewers understand.
Sure.
Talk to us about that.
So one of the ways in which we talk about fire is that it is always catastrophic. It destroys. What an ecologist would tell you and what an environmental historian would tell you is it destroys and also regenerates.
Explain.
That's the mechanism by which nature allows various tree species, and in our case, chaparral, that's how it regenerates. It needs fire to sort of open up its seeds. Sequoias don't drop their seeds, for example, unless there's flames, because that's how it explodes into life.
You look at headlines.
Yes.
And, look, I said
The
I wasn't
screaming
gonna,
headlines.
Yeah, I wasn't going to hold this up, but I am now.
Yeah.
Larger, more aggressive wildfires are
whipped
up.
Right.
These are draconian
Yes.
in nature.
Yes.
They are apocalyptic.
Yes.
And then you read what it says. It talks about the deadly Valley and Butte fires. Obviously, but
They
that
were.
actually, and that brings up the point.
Yes.
Where is the line between you want the fire to burn,
Right?
but then you want to protect life
Yes.
and or
property.
building and property?
Yeah,
So talk to me through it.
So part of what any firefighter or collection of them have to do is to figure out where that line is. And that line really is at what we call the wildland-urban interface, where people and forest intersect. And that's tough. I mean, it's the most recent fires in Azusa and Duarte were a reflection of that. The fires last summer up in Middletown and other areas.
But the question becomes, are humans intersecting in places they shouldn't?
Oh, absolutely. They shouldn't be there.
Right. And so, look, I am not advocating that we let these cabins burn.
Yes.
But do we need to look at our land use policy?
Yes. Absolutely. Planning commissions, zoning commissions, all of them should be held responsible for this. Because it's just as in the Mississippi River Valley, you do not build in flood zones. So why are we burning in fire zones? Why do we allow that to happen and then insure the house so that it can be rebuilt after a fire comes through?
At the same time, though, when you compare this year to last year, as we speak, middle of this summer, we have burned twice as many acres as we did at the same point last year. Not a big surprise given that, or is it? I mean, we still are in drought, although this year was wetter, at least in certain parts of the state.
Yeah, not here.
Not in
we got
central
less
and
here.
southern California. But
Yeah.
Should we be burning this much?
That's a tough one. And actually, it's the beginning of the summer.
Right.
And so what we're now seeing is a lengthening of the fire season, an extension of its intensity, and that's dangerous. Lord knows it's dangerous. But I think part of what we also have to hold back on the sort of whipped up language, because nature has a purpose in these fires. And in some cases, that's actually making those forests healthier. But the language we use is that it's death. And I think that's inappropriate.
So given what we face today with this push-pull, how does that play into the thesis of your book, which is America's great national forests, wildernesses, and grasslands?
Well, the thesis of the book and the way in which these things tie in is that the public lands, national forests, parks, refuges, grasslands, wilderness, I mean, these are an extraordinary treasure. Absolutely amazing that a different time produced these for us. And so one of my arguments in the book is that that's now our job, is to protect those landscapes because they were given to us. It's cross-generational. An earlier generation gave them to us, and we want to make sure that my grandchildren and your kids will still be able to benefit from those landscapes. So we have to manage across generations, and that's a real obligation, an important responsibility, and I think it's what makes this democratic experiment so powerful.
Yet views of how to manage vary.
Yes, they do. And because there's politics involved and because the nature of American democratic life is to fight like crazy for the special interests that you hold most dear. And it leads to, for example, the Malheur refuge takeover in January with guns.
You'll come back?
I would love to.
He is Char Miller. He is a professor at Pomona College. He is the author of this book, America's Great National Forests, Wildernesses, and Grasslands. My name is Brad Pomerance, Charter Local Edition.